we have some interesting news out of YT, out of Germany. They're going into self-restructuring, which is a little bit like bankruptcy, but it's not. They're basically reorganizing the company to make it more healthy, hopefully profitable, and be able to live to fight another day, basically.
Yeah, they're doing what a lot of brands are doing right now. You know, they're trying to get through some rough waters. The excitement that the powers that be and the people placing the orders during COVID, with the COVID boom, I think they got a little bit excited, and it's no stranger that there's an inventory issue. And one of the things that he mentioned on the video, which I didn't even think about, is all of these brands that are not rider direct that are selling stuff super cheap.
Oh yeah.
So those discounts are now matching the price of the rider direct, and that's really just kind of pulling the rug out from under those brands.
Yeah, and they're lucky that they are rider direct, because that is a little bit of extra margin for them. And that's why so many brands have gone under, especially the ones that work through this odd supply chain that bikes have, you know, brand, bike shop individual, or sometimes it's brand distributor, bike shop, and it's just really, there's a lot of steps. So it's really clear that a setup like YT needs to exist so that the brand can, you know, have enough to eat. But at the same time, if everyone's driving the prices down, it hurts everyone.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a restructuring moment for not only YT and their current situation, but for the whole industry and the way things are done. I think it's an opportunity to sort of kind of catch up to the bikes and the products that are being sold to the way that they're being sold. Because it's almost like the curve, like the bike industry and the way that we're getting bikes to riders is going up like this, but then the technology and the need for it is going like this. Mm-hmm. So I think now is a good time for people to start like looking at what needs to be different. How do we do it a way that was different from before that benefits everybody? And I just hope that, you know, they don't forget about the end user in this restructuring. And that was some of the most kind of comforting bits about the news that YT gave out in that video, kind of giving us, you know, the fans and the consumers an inside look. And the thing that stood out the most to me was when he was like, COVID was great. And 5 years ago, I stepped down as CEO. We brought in a new CEO. And then a year ago, I came back and couldn't believe what I found and had to go into this bankruptcy / restructuring. So it's like, how many times are we going to hear the same story where like the heart and soul of the brand is with the people running it, and then they need to step aside or they sell for financial gain or whatever it might be? It's like, guys, stop doing the same thing over and over and over again.
It really is. It's very clear. The companies that are still owned and managed by their founders, the riders, versus the companies that are owned and managed by private equity or whatever, the private equity companies, those are the ones getting wiped out. And the, you know, in this case, YT, who's now under their original ownership or original management, is getting brought back to life, transition, made it through, rider owned, rider managed. Like, those are the companies that I guess have a better feeler of how the industry works. And it's so important to understand as a rider, the riders that are buying your bikes. And then there's another aspect, like you said, the technology is additive manufacturing, easier to manufacture bikes, less lead time to manufacture bikes. That's going to help a lot, because what happens is time goes by, you design a bike, 2 years can go by before it really hits the shelves. Technology changes so quickly nowadays. And is that bike old? Is that bike going to be relevant in 2 years? At this point, it's so hard to know. And I think as a part of, you know, streamlining that supply chain and streamlining the way between the brand and the user, they need to also make a faster manufacturing cycle so that it can go from concept to production really quickly. And then not just concept to production, but the production timeline and the investment in production, the molds and stuff, you know.
Don't give them even more reason to standardize suspension platforms for e-bike motors, because that sounds like what you're doing to me.
No, I just want them to be able to produce bikes more quickly and like more cost effectively, because that'll trickle down to the consumer too. And like that, people can get bikes for less money, and the brands can build them for less money.
Well, if we're talking about making them cheaper for the consumers, the bike brands got to stop sitting on their asses and just buying all the parts. Because you see in the forums people talking about the comparison. Oh my God, that new Specialized or that new this or that new Yeti is $12,000. That's insane. I could go get this new dirt bike for $8,000. And it's like, why? Well, volume is part of it, but also there's a middleman in almost every single component on your bike, except for the frame. So it's like those motocross manufacturers, they're making margin on every single part because they're actually making the parts. And it's really hard to break into with the way that the bicycle industry is. People have their standards. People are, they're set in their ways a little bit. They have trust in SRAM suspension and Fox suspension. Now we have Olin's, and I've heard of, Bilstein coming in, some auto manufacturer truck stuff and moto stuff, KYB. So things are changing there, but it's like,
but you're thinking the brands need to start making their own products so they own more of the products on their bikes.
That's why Specialized is as big as they are, because if you look at a high-end Specialized and a high-end Yeti or a high-end Forbidden or a high-end any other brand that makes a $10,000 analog bike, Specialized makes the most parts that are on that bike.
It's true.
They got
saddles,
they got Roval wheels, they got saddles, they got tires, they got the bar, and all of the stuff is high quality that you can justify putting on a $10,000 bike. They're charging more for the bike, but they're getting a higher margin.
Double dipping, basically.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But it's not, you could say double dipping, or you could say it's smart business.
It is smart business. Absolutely.
They're doing the work.
Yeah.
They're developing each part. They have engineers for that stuff. So it's like, if you want to make bikes more affordable and you want to compete with Specialized, or you want to compete with those big brands that can do that, bring that savings to the customer, and then you'll undercut those guys.
I always wondered how much of it was a scale thing, because like this iPhone, I went online, I was looking for a new SRAM derailleur. I wanted the new T-type transmission. And I was like, wait a second, I could buy an iPhone for that much. And I thought, an iPhone's a computer, there's AI, movies, battery, all this stuff. And the SRAM derailleur goes beep, boop, beep, and it's like, why does it cost as much as an iPhone?
Because it's sick.
It is. It
gets you up the hill.
It is sick, but imagine the technology of an iPhone in bike parts. Like it's the bike industry is so far behind, and I wonder like at what scale. Obviously, the iPhone is probably the biggest mass market product in the world, or one of them. So
I mean, dude, there's how many? There's like almost 10 billion people in the world. Like 8 billion of them have an iPhone.
A huge percentage.
If 8 billion of them had a T-type derailleur, they would be cheap and way better.
hopefully. But what I'm saying is like, yeah, what level? Where does mountain biking have to get to for us to see those gains in the scale? And then where is the incentive from the industry?
Happier riders. That's the only thing I see is that's the route to happier riders and making things, more affordable is. I think those brands kind of really digging in and making their own gains and not just sort of like looking for other people to do it. Yeah. But where do we start? Back to the YT thing.
Right.
I am excited to see what they do next, because the original guy, what's his name? Marcus Flossman. He's back, and he's getting creative to dance through the way the industry is operating right now. And I'm excited to see what comes from his mind, because he's been there and he's emotional. He's connected to the brand. It's his brand. It's his baby, most likely. So I'm excited to see what YT does next. I think this is a good thing for them.
Yeah. What do you think about the need to maybe scale down the number of different bikes people are making? I always thought that some brands are making a few too many bikes, a few too many SKUs, more carbon frames, more carbon molds. That means more bikes in a warehouse somewhere when they don't sell. Do you think that brands might need to scale back for a short amount of time how many different bikes they're making?
Yeah, I think there's been an effort to condense lines, I think, since all the brands started canceling their female specific lines. That's kind of when I saw it start. Like, oh, now it's all about, for a long time it was like, we need 12 SKUs per model. We need 6 models for every single situation there could possibly be. And, the bikes are getting so good, the differentiation between the cost of the parts is getting smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. And also it is easier to manage less SKUs. So that SKU reduction that I saw kind of start maybe like 10 years ago has carried through and is still something that people are trying to do. And speaking of YT, I think they have their eyes on exactly what you're talking about. You see some of their uncaged builds, which is the same, chassis and same basic, pricing structure, but it kind of, I don't know this for sure. It kind of seems like they're shopping around on what parts are not only wanted and popular in the current culture, but also what they can get in that moment, and then putting a build together. And it's the Uncaged 4, Uncaged 3. I think that's a cool way to do it. Almost like how you have an established skateboard team and they have their, their shape and their weight board that they run. And then throughout the year, there's different series that come out, and there's different art on that whole series, but you have every athlete on there. So kind of in that way, but making the bikes the characters. It seemed like what YT was doing, which I like that.
Yeah, totally. And they have their whole enduro team also focused around that. Like they're running the parts they want to run. So it's a cool marketing thing. And like Uncaged is like, we're not going to stick with one brand or the other, but it's also like, yeah, like you said, what is on clearance, what works in this current pop culture. It's good marketing.
Yeah, it's good marketing and it's smart business. I mean, it's good for the part manufacturers. It's good for the YT, the manufacturer themselves, but it's also they're trickling that down to the rider. And to me, that's the best.